What's good, y'all? We're back at again. It's the All Facts No Cap podcast. And I'm your host, Harris Carr. And it's not really a special guest because he's been here before. Yo, welcome back, Steven.
Hello, glad to be here. Thanks for the opportunity.
All right, so last time we talked about March Madness, and that was like 2 months ago now. And Baylor won. And if you clearly remember, I had Baylor in my bracket winning the entire thing.
Me too, actually. Baylor was the team to watch going to the March Madness tournament.
The big story was UCLA from going for the
Yeah,
first four to the Elite Eight.
they almost made the
was just
championship.
Yeah, had Suggs not hit that shot, we don't even know what would happen.
I mean, like the analysts would say. I mean, it's a bad shot, all right, but it went in. So, I mean, it just happens sometimes.
Also, he had no choice. He had no choice. Like, he had to put up a shot. Like,
yeah, that's true. And he just makes it. Good players will make shots, and Jalen Suggs is a good player. I mean, has all the respect in the world.
Now his draft stock is rising because of that.
Yeah, I mean,
you know whose draft stock is rising? Johnny Juzang.
Johnny Juzang, yeah.
Yeah.
At the end, he was at the end of like before the tournament, he was maybe like a low second round pick, but now he's like, I think he's like going up now. He's like high second round pick, low first round.
Yeah, now he's around that. Okay, yeah. So we'll see. So now we're gonna touch on a bit of the playoffs. So what are your big surprises this year?
Big surprises this year
in the NBA season, yeah.
Big surprises. I mean, it's really no surprise. Most of the teams in the playoffs, I feel like, should be there. Philly obviously getting the number one seed. I feel like that's very deserved. It's not really a surprise at this point, honestly. Like at the beginning, I was like Philly and Brooklyn. I was expecting Brooklyn and Milwaukee, obviously Miami as well to take those top three spots in the East, of course. But I mean, Philly. I was underrating Philly this entire time. Great team, great franchise. Doc Rivers, amazing coach. What about you?
To be completely honest, like when we're talking about the Eastern Conference, as we see the first three teams are the 76ers, Nets, and Bucks, which isn't really a bit of a reach. Like if anyone told you that before the year started, you can probably agree. Anyone can probably admit that. But then after that, like the East becomes so weak. Like the Hawks are the fourth seed, the Heat are the fifth seed, and the Knicks are the sixth seed, and the Celtics are the seventh seed. Like this is where it gets a lot surprising because there's teams last year like the Raptors and even the Celtics for a bit of a time. They weren't even a playoff team. They were just like dealing because of this year. This year is a very weird year for them, right?
It is, yeah.
So
that is true, especially looking at this year is weird because of the play-in tournament, right? Like you have Indiana and Washington playing. I believe it's Indiana and Washington and Boston and Charlotte, right? Yeah. I mean,
Boston and Charlotte. Yeah, exactly.
Imagine Washington getting the eighth seed and beating Philly. That would be like amazing to see, honestly.
That would be a Cinderella story. They were bottom of the league for so long. And then now it just comes to realize when Russell Westbrook was healthy, that's when the team just started becoming better. So, and then before people used to blame Westbrook and Bradley Beal for having like empty stats and stuff, but then now we're realizing like maybe Russell was unhealthy and that's why the team was very bad.
Exactly. I mean, if you look back at his OKC Thunder days, I mean that's the prime Russell Westbrook. And now we're starting to see a little bit of him like that in Washington, and that's good.
Oh
it's
no,
good
no, he's not. It's not really. No, he's not really the same guy. Like
not really the same
he doesn't
guy,
really.
but...
He doesn't have that mid range killer. He doesn't have those.
I'm saying we're starting to see a little bit of the old Russell back, and that's a good thing, right? I feel like the trade to Houston kind of just destroyed Washington. His like whole. It's been a tough few years for Russell. It's good to see him, playing like this again.
But also the Knicks are the sixth seed. No one expected them to be a playoff team, but that now we see like the emergence of Randall, RJ Barrett even took a big step. They have really great players like Frank Ntilikina is pretty good off the bench. Reggie Bullock is pretty good. Mitchell Robinson's out, I think, is he?
I actually don't know about that.
Tom Thibodeau made a comeback, and he's a coach of the year candidate.
If
you heard, if you heard in my previous, if you heard like my one of my episodes a few days ago, I said Tom Thibodeau it should be second to the coach of the year candidate. I believe I said that, but I said Monty Williams from the Suns actually should be coach of the
Yeah.
year because that's.
Mhm.
And now we're gonna move on to the West. Yeah, so the Jazz, Suns, and Nuggets are the first three seeds. That is very shocking. No one would have expected that.
You know what? I feel like Utah. I feel like Utah has been doing well all season. Like they started off on fire with Mike Conley, and great. Just obviously, again, like can't say this enough. Mike Conley, Donovan Mitchell, great team. Utah has just been
And
Utah's
Rudy
been
Gobert.
dominating.
Rudy Gobert
Rudy
is like
Gobert,
probably
yeah.
the defensive player of the year candidate.
Uh, I would, yeah, I would say so. But there are other candidates out there that can obviously fit into defensive player of the year.
Yeah, I said if you heard my recent one, I said Ben Simmons should win it because he guards the best player so well, and
Yeah.
he really has a big impact on that Philly defense.
Mm-hmm. For sure, for sure.
But
I mean,
the
how
one
well do you
thing,
think? Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, we're not gonna say how long do I think what?
Okay, yeah. What do you? I was gonna talk about the Denver Nuggets now with the Jamal Murray injury. Like, I feel like he's not gonna
Yeah.
come back anytime soon. Do you think they're gonna have a chance against Portland? Because now, like, Portland is
Oh
healthy again.
yes,
I mean,
yeah,
CJ
yeah.
McCollum.
They'll beat them. They'll beat them.
Yeah,
They'll
I
beat
feel
them.
like with CJ
Because
McCollum, everybody healthy, it's tough. Portland is tough.
I'm gonna say a few things, right? Because when you look at different perspectives, right? Because when Jamal Murray got injured, that's when Michael Porter Jr. took a big leap, and now him and Jokic are just on fire right now.
I mean, Michael
And
Porter
then
Jr. ever since the draft, he's been like an underdog. You know what I'm saying? Like he didn't really get the hype, but now people are only realizing how really good Michael Porter Jr. actually is.
yeah, I still remember that draft. Like he
Yeah,
out of all those prospects, everyone had called him like he had the highest ceiling guy. But now it's probably like Luka Doncic when we look back at it. But still, and he still has a pretty high ceiling. Like
yeah.
he's a really great off ball score. He's a really great off ball shooter, like an off ball player. And when we look at it from a different point of view, right? Because Michael Porter Jr. is really the second option, or right now he's the second option. And when Jamal Murray's back, he's gonna be like the third option. If Michael Porter Jr. had if the offense wasn't so Jokic heavy passing, but playmaking, Michael Porter Jr. could be a 25 point per game score and with really great efficiency. And he honestly could be an MVP candidate if he has an entire team built around him.
An MVP can I wouldn't go as far as that, but he would.
I
I feel
said
like he would.
I said he could go as
He could.
far
Yeah.
if he wanted. Yeah, if the offense was built around him more than if the offense wasn't Jokic heavy. But yeah, but speaking, yes, so the first three seeds, right? So I said the Jazz. So yeah, we're not talking about the Suns. The Suns are a big. So they acquired CP3. The CP3 was really a big thing. It was a really
Yeah.
big thing.
Before Phoenix acquired Chris Paul, it was the team felt like they weren't playing together, especially if you look at DeAndre Ayton, like right after the draft, nobody really talked about him like for the 2019 season because he didn't really I don't want to say didn't do anything. He obviously had a big impact on the team, but he just with Chris Paul on the Suns, DeAndre Ayton's just been on fire too. I mean,
Yeah, apparently Chris Paul's in some MVP conversations, right? With like 16 points, 8.8 rebounds, and like eight or not eight rebounds, my bad, like eight assists. And a lot of I've seen a lot of Raptors fans, and I know you're a Raptors fan. That's why I'm telling you about this. That they're comparing this year to like Kyle Lowry last year, and then they're saying, "Oh, like Kyle Lowry last year had crickets, and Chris Paul's having MVP talks." What is your say on this?
I respect obviously I respect the Bulldogs of the West and the East, obviously respectively being Chris Paul and Kyle Lowry. I don't feel like Chris Paul is necessarily in the MVP conversation right now. I mean, people are like talking about him getting MVP, but I don't feel like he should really win MVP. I mean, he did turn the entire franchise around. Obviously, Phoenix from not even being in the playoffs now to the second seed. That's obviously very respectable. But if you look at players like obviously Ben Simmons, uh, Nikola Jokic, these big name players. It's I feel like Jokic should finally get his MVP year this year.
Did you just say Ben Simmons is MVP your candidate?
No, I said Jokic, but people were talking about Ben Simmons being MVP because I mean, look at the way he's playing for Philly.
He
It's
hasn't
been
really had a
great.
great year this year. Defensively, yeah, but offensively, he's just been the same.
Yeah, I mean, but still, people are like talking about it because of like the impact that he made to bring Philly to a number one seed, right? It's been it's been insane.
Yeah, I can agree with that. But so the weird the one thing is right. We see the Lakers as the seventh seed, the Mavs as the fifth seed, the Clippers as the fourth seed, the Warriors as the eighth seed. So what are your thoughts on that? Because I really think if the Lakers are fully healthy, they're good. They're just easily going to come out the West. I think actually, but I also do have the Clippers also coming out the West if they face the Lakers. What do you think? Because I remember a lot of people said that last year about the Clippers beating the Lakers, but I think now the Clippers actually have a greater chance because of they have a greater chance because they acquired Rondo and playoff Rondo was real. We saw what he did last year in the bubble.
For sure.
And yeah, I just think the Clippers have a better matchup against the Lakers, and I think they could beat them because I'm not really doubting LeBron and the Lakers, but I'm just doubting like can they stay healthy? Because that's like the big issue they've dealt with this year.
Yeah. Especially talking about AD. Is AD healthy yet?
Yeah,
Last time I
yeah,
checked,
he's
he was
back.
still. Oh, he's
No, he's
back. Really?
back. Yeah, he dropped like 46 points the other day
Really?
against the Suns. Yeah, they beat the Suns.
Yeah. That's. I mean, Los Angeles, LA Lakers. I mean, LeBron, AD, especially the new white Mamba, Alex Caruso. I'm just playing. That the Lakers deserve all the respect in the world. And being in the play-in tournament, I think was against is it Memphis or Golden State?
They're up against Golden State.
Oh, dude. I mean,
That's gonna be a sick
imagine.
play in game. Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably gonna be the most the the best playing game in this year's playing tournament. To be honest.
I'm gonna ask you. Okay, so a lot of people say, okay, yeah, so Stephen Curry should be the MVP because it actually means the most valuable player.
Hmm.
But do you think he should get the award in general? I think no, just because based on the criteria the years have been, right? It's always been the best player on like a top three team.
That's true, but
That's why I think Jokic should come with the award.
yeah, I mean, yeah, the reason why Steph Curry has been playing like this, obviously, without Curry, you just can't lie. The Golden State Warriors are a G League team, like
Yeah, basically.
because that's why like Steph Curry had to just carry the team on his backs. And until next year, I think, and I say next year, but sources haven't really confirmed this yet. But until next year, Klay Thompson comes back, the Golden State Warriors are gonna stay like a G League team. That's just how it is.
They also like if they really want to contend, they should really trade Wiseman or something like Andrew Wiggins maybe because it's more I don't really remember saying this in the draft, but now that I think about the draft 2020, right? I think yeah, like the Warriors really not really messed up the second pick, but they kind of made the wrong pick with picking James Wiseman.
I mean, the Warriors did need a big man going into the
That's
season.
the problem. That's the problem when it comes to drafting, right? When you're at the top of the draft, you want to take the most talented player rather than your biggest need. Because when you take your biggest need, then okay, well, it really depends because if that biggest need is the most talented player, then that makes sense. But when you have the most talented player available, and you chose not to pick him just because of a team need, then it really doesn't work out. Because now we saw how Lamelo was working out, right? When
Hmm.
the on Charlotte Hornets, he's making an immediate impact on their team. Yet James Wiseman, he is really great. Like, don't get me wrong, he probably has a higher ceiling than Lamelo, to be completely honest. But the thing is, James Wiseman is a rookie. He's very young. He's not really going to make an immediate impact on that Warriors team right now. So
Hmm.
that's what I'm saying. They made the wrong pick just because they didn't get the guy that would make an immediate impact. Just because they picked more of a need than an actual talent. Because now when we think about it, like if you've seen the Warriors this year, they have no bench. They really have no one else but Curry to give just the ball to. Apart from Draymond a few times, but that's just it. If they had Lamelo, it would have been a fine backcourt with Curry and Lamelo, or put Lamelo at the bench and then he can upgrade that.
But imagine though, the thing is, imagine Klay Thompson comes back. So I feel like the reason why the Warriors skipped Lamelo to get James Wiseman. Obviously, James Wiseman, as you said, he has a very high skill ceiling. This guy, like in a few years, could be top five centers in the NBA. Who knows, right? Like, coming out of college, he was just insane. So he built different. But like next year, assuming Klay Thompson comes back, sorry, we're gonna have Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and also you have Draymond, and then maybe and if Andrew Wiggins gets traded or not, we'll see. And then James Wiseman running the big. So I mean, that is a solid
That's
starting
kind of
lineup.
the problem. That's kind of the problem. Like he hasn't really been running it this much this year.
That is true. Hmm.
It's more because like the Warriors' offense is really complex, so he just really needs more time to learn.
Mhm.
That's what I think. For they should have really picked LaMelo because, and you said James Wiseman was just coming out of college, right? And yeah, he was a beast. But at the same time, when you look at college projections compared to what LaMelo had, LaMelo was already pro in Australia,
Yep.
so he was already pro already, and then he showed that this year. Same with James Wise. Like James Wiseman was more of a projection than an actual like hit.
Hmm.
And yeah, he is
Now,
really great. He is really great. He is
yeah,
really great. But as we look at the rookie of the year candidates, right? So
yeah,
I'm saying I said LaMelo Ball should win it, even though he went through the injury because
yep.
he was no rookie played at his level for like the first half of the season. Then Anthony Edwards started to come in like later in. But even then, I don't even think Anthony Edwards is top two. I really think Tyrese Halliburton deserves it over him because he was
Hmm.
more consistent this entire year. Yeah, but I still think the rookie of the year will go to Melo Ball. Do you think
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, if I mean Lamelo Ball made a clutch comeback right here, right? If his wrist like took him out the entire season, I feel like Rookie of the Year would have went to someone else because like the time he missed with Charlotte, and obviously when Lamelo wasn't on the court, Charlotte wasn't doing as well as he was on the court, right? So
Yeah.
now that he came back and he's still just it's like nothing happened to him. His performance just haven't hasn't like been dropping or anything. So I feel like number one option, rookie of the year, not even close.
Okay. I'm
I feel
gonna
like
ask you, what are your sleeper teams for this playoffs?
sleeper teams. I feel like there are a lot of teams that could make a big impact. Uh, I'm actually not sure. What do you think? Let me actually look at this year's playoffs for a second because I mean obviously
Okay.
it's
Okay.
different. It's
I
definitely
don't.
different.
So okay, but the thing is, the reason why I'm not really thinking of any sleeper teams because I just really think the Nets are going to win the championship. Like, I know it's very casual to think of that, but at the same time, like I can't really think of a team beating the Nets, outscoring the Nets 4 times out of 7 tries. Like I just can't see it happening. That's why I
Yeah,
just see the Nets just easily winning that championship. I'm sorry
that's
to
true.
spoil it, but the only problem I think I really have with the Nets, right, is just that they're very injured and they're injured. They might have chemistry issues because the big three
Hmm.
hasn't really played together.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's what I was
like
gonna say about the Nets too.
maybe that's why like you can see like Philly, maybe like the Bucks like come out of the East.
Yeah. See, that's what I was gonna say about Brooklyn too, because like the big three, obviously, like you said, throughout the season haven't really played together that much. Yeah, because they were like injured really often. And obviously, you have Kevin Durant, James Harden, even Blake Griffin. Blake Griffin kind of is like a wild card, but even Kyrie Irving, right? They're just the big three, obviously. They're not very there's only one basketball, like they always say, and they're all really ball dominant players. So I want to see how that works out when all three of them are healthy and on the floor in the
When we
playoffs.
saw
But
when we there were some games where they were and it was completely fine.
it was well. The thing is, that's just we'll see what Brooklyn does in
Yeah,
the
we'll
playoffs. But
see.
they're going to be obviously all of my respects also go out to Steve Nash and his team. You know,
Also, one thing I was gonna point out was that when you really think about it, if the Nets don't win this year, they're gonna be trolled so hard. But then at the same time, you can probably understand why because they didn't. The big three hasn't really played together right that much.
hmm
So, but like, do you which out of the 76ers or Bucks do you think they can possibly beat the Nets have if the Nets have like chemistry issues
that is
or
a
like
very good
injuries?
question. Hmm.
I
Because
think the
Philly this
Bucks.
year, I mean,
I think the
go
Bucks
ahead.
could actually do that. I think the Bucks can actually beat the Nets if that problem were to, because the addition of Drew Holiday was
Yeah,
actually a big one.
yeah. Drew Holiday. I mean, we've already seen him from his New Orleans days, right? He can guard some of the biggest names in this game. Like Drew Holiday is just an insane defender.
Yo, what was the point you were gonna make when you said when
When
I
I said
asked
what?
you when I asked you which out of Philly or the Bucks would beat would do which one do you think will beat the Nets if the Nets were not healthy
Oh,
or
that
even just like just beating the Nets in general.
I was gonna say that's a really good question because both teams are obviously very talented, top three teams in their respect in the Eastern Conference. Honestly, I do agree with you. Milwaukee, I mean, with Giannis, obviously Giannis is just gonna be Giannis, and Drew Holiday is just the defensive phenom. Honestly, I feel like Drew Holiday should be in conversation for Defensive Player of the Year, but
Yeah, he
it's just
is. I think he
unfortunate.
is.
He is
I
really.
even said I even said in my in the award season I said Drew Holiday should really win the award because of the impact he made for the Bucks. But then I said Ben Simmons will win the award. So yeah, I don't even know at this point.
It's
Yes,
just
the reason why I said which sleeper teams because I saw the Hawks with the fourth seed. So I said yo should we not sleep? Should we not sleep on the Hawks?
I mean, the Hawks has been, just mediocre for the past few years ever since they got Trey Young. So, we'll see how they do in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's also like the first year in the playoffs, so we don't even know how Trae Young
Mhm.
can do with
It's it's
that.
it's just a weird year, like I was talking about, because a lot
Or
of
even
teams that were supposed to be in the playoffs aren't, and a lot of teams that like are not usually in the playoffs are in the playoffs now. So we'll see how this
yeah,
works out.
that's even the Heat. The Heat are the fifth seed. Should we sleep on them or not?
No, obviously they were in the NBA Finals, and
Yeah,
their
very
roster hasn't really
much.
changed that much besides Kelly Olynyk. I think Kelly Olynyk isn't on the Heat anymore, is he?
Yeah, you got traded to the Rockets. Yeah,
Yeah. So their roster, I mean, they have Victor Oladipo. So
yeah, but he got
we
injured.
should not. Yeah, no, but we should not be sleeping on Miami. Obviously, if Miami makes it
Mhm.
out the first round,
That's very
is
true.
Victor Oladipo injured for the entire season, or
I think he is maybe. All right, let me check.
because if Victor Oladipo is on the floor healthy, I mean, Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo,
Well,
uh,
I think he rarely played though this year for the Heat. Also, yeah, the thing I was gonna mention about the Bucks was that even though like they could beat the Nets, I just really think it all really depends on how Giannis plays in this year's playoffs because he doesn't really have a huge playoff like a good playoff history so far, and also like if there was a year for him to win, it would probably be now because
like a year for
this was a super max this is a super max year and he already signed it I know but
yep.
like he has to really believe in this team for him to just
Hmm.
stay here for like another 5 years.
Yeah, that's true. No, but the thing is, with Milwaukee, I feel like Milwaukee obviously does have the biggest chance, but I feel like, in 2019, that was Milwaukee's biggest chance to win the championship, like before they lost to Toronto and everything. But like if Toronto were to have lost to Philly in Game 7, I feel like Milwaukee would have came out of the East and won the NBA championship, in my opinion.
Hmm. Actually, I really think if Kawhi had not hit that shot, I think Philly could have came up that year because the
Mm,
adjustments the Raptors made on defense for Giannis, I think Philly could have done the same thing with when because that time they had Jimmy Butler and they had like they still had Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid.
yeah, it was 2019 was a stacked year in Toronto. I mean, that was probably
That
one
was
of the
like the
best
last good
playoffs.
year, to be honest. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was like the last good year.
2020 was just Laker dominating everything. I mean, and then 2021, we'll see though. Like
Yeah,
realistically, like what the people are saying online is going to be Brooklyn and maybe the Lakers. The
Lakers.
West
Yeah,
is going to be interesting. The West is
yeah. The
really going to be
West.
interesting.
I've actually been asked this question a lot. If LeBron takes the seventh seeded Lakers team to the finals and beats the Nets, if foretold in the finals, right? Do you consider him the GOAT?
The GOAT? No, absolutely not. I mean, consider. I mean, not really. Not absolutely
Really?
not. He would be in. He would be in the conversation for the greatest player ever, obviously. But if you look at
He's
Michael Jordan and his days with the just obviously Michael Jordan and his days with the Bulls in general. I mean, I don't think I should.
really
I don't think
I
I need to
because
explain anything.
this is very this is because I think he probably is. He took a
Oh,
seven seed. If he does do that, I don't really think he will. But if he takes a seven seeded team, injury riddled team to the finals and beats the Nets, the most like not people say it's the most perfectly tooled team, but I'm not really gonna say that. but still, the Nets have basically everyone, and if he beats them, that's I don't know how you cannot call him the GOAT because like you even if you do look at Michael Jordan's days, like I'm a person that thinks Jordan is the GOAT. And I've been saying for a long time that Jordan will always be the GOAT. But if LeBron pulls this off, I honestly think I would lean towards more of him being the greatest of all time.
And obviously, obviously all the respect all to LeBron as well. Probably the great, like one of the greatest players in the game. You can't like gold or not, top three player ever to play this game. So
Top two, yeah, like he has to be two or well, I'm not saying he's one, but if he's two, yeah, I'm fine with that.
yeah. Well, I mean, uh, see, this is the thing about the West though. You just don't know. You just don't know about anything. I mean, Dallas,
Yeah,
Los
no,
Angeles
should we? Yeah,
Clippers.
that was my problem. Like, should we sleep on the Jazz or Suns? Like, do we think they're legit?
I feel like Utah should not be slept on. I mean, slept on. Sorry, because Utah plays. Who does Utah play like the winner of the play-in
They
tournament, right?
play they play the winner of the Grizzlies and Spurs.
Grizzlies Spurs. Oh, so it's Lakers Golden State. Okay, Grizzlies Spurs.
Yeah,
Sorry, I
yeah,
got it.
yeah. We already said that.
Okay. Uh, hmm. Who do you think is going to come out of that tournament?
That's actually a really good question for the entire playing tournament. Yeah, let's give our predictions actually. So
Hmm.
yeah, for the Lakers and Warriors, I'm just gonna say the Lakers because like I know Curry's been balling recently, but at the same time, like I think LeBron and Anthony Davis are coming back.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's just I think the Lakers will settle that one. And then the Grizzlies and Spurs, I'm gonna lean toward the Grizzlies, of course. Not just like I can't really underestimate Greg Popovich because he's really turned the Spurs team like yeah they're not a playoff team but they're also not a terrible team, right?
Hmm.
But I'm still gonna think the Grizzlies because the Grizzlies actually have been pretty good this year and they have a pretty solid team. Yeah, and then yeah I'll probably go with the Grizzlies there. And then for the Celtics and Hornets, that game actually might be a lot closer than we think.
Hmm.
But I'm still gonna go with the Celtics just because they probably have that experience more than the Nets. I mean, than the Hornets, my bad. And then the Pacers and Wizards. I really do think Washington can really come out of that because Washington has been balling out recently. They haven't been winning. I mean, they haven't been losing a lot. So compared to like the beginning of the season, so I'm just gonna say the Wizards, Celtics, Lakers, and Grizzlies will come out of the play. Will come out of the playing tournament.
Hmm. I do definitely agree with you for most of these. But it would be cool though, like looking at the playing tournament, it would be really a Cinderella story if Golden State comes out, gets a seventh seed, and then beats Phoenix. That'd be insane. Do you think it
Wait. What do
would
you
if
have?
just basically the same as you? Obviously
Okay,
Memphis
yeah.
over San Antonio. The only one though I'm not really sure is Indiana Washington. That one's gonna be
Hmm.
like a lot closer. Boston Charlotte is gonna be it's gonna be Boston because of the veteran presence and just playoff experience in general, like you said. And yeah,
Okay, yeah. So what were you gonna say about the Warriors?
the Warriors. I mean, like you were talking about LeBron taking the seventh seed Lakers. What if Curry takes the eighth seed Warriors like through everything? I don't think
And wins the
obviously I don't think that's
championship?
not to the championship, obviously, but I feel it's not really realistic. But imagine though, imagine Curry. Just imagine if Golden State just beats Phoenix. That'd just be insane to watch.
I think people probably think that would happen, honestly, because no one really likes Phoenix.
No, but still, Phoenix should not be slept on.
Yeah, for sure. Of course, yo, they won 49 games. Like we can't really
That's
say that.
yeah, 49
Yeah,
games
even the
won.
Jazz, I really think the Jazz could spark some shine. I think just the problem is they're probably gonna face the Lakers or Clippers in the second round. So that's just gonna
Mm.
keep them if they get past it. Yeah.
Well,
That's just gonna be
The
their
Clippers are
problem.
just obviously not very. They don't really have a good obviously playoff history with like playoff P and everything, but
Yeah, of course. But I think this year they actually do have a way better chance than they
mhm,
do. And also Kawhi's a free agent, so they want to convince him to stay, which I think he will stay regardless
he
because
will.
he
Yeah.
he wants to stay in LA. But and yeah, I was actually gonna talk to you about this last time, but we talked more about the trade deadline. If Kawhi Leonard, if Kawhi Leonard loses this year, the Clippers don't work out. A lot of Raptors fans are saying he's gonna come back. Do you think he's gonna come back?
I mean, uh, being a Raptor, I mean, obviously a lot of the people that are Raptors fans, and this is just a harsh reality, but a lot of Raptors fans are just what I like to say casuals, right? They don't like they only follow basketball because of the championship in 2019. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Kawhi, obviously the entire city has respect for the man. He knows it, right? With Kawhi and dying and everything that went on in the 2019 season, and that was crazy to say the least. So I mean, for
That
Kawhi
was
to
like the
come out,
best experience in your life.
yeah, I mean, it was a good time to be a Toronto fan, right? I mean, it was insane. Nobody really talked about Toronto. I mean, even though Toronto's the second seed in 2019, nobody really talked about us, and then just won a championship. That was pretty insane. But
That was a
back to your
big risk
question,
too. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Go ahead.
that was
Go
a big
ahead. Yeah.
risk because in the 2018 season when the Demar Kawhi trade, that was there was a lot of like
What was
controversies
the
around.
question? What was the question you're gonna ask me?
Oh no, I was gonna say, gonna go back to your question. Uh, if Kawhi is gonna come back to Toronto, I don't think so. I feel like Kawhi is gonna stay with LA, even if
Yeah.
because of like his entire thing. Because throughout his entire time in Toronto, people were like the main reason why he didn't stay. People were saying is because he wanted to be in LA, right?
hmm And yeah, he won a championship in Toronto and left. Yeah, so like, I'm pretty sure that's gonna like if he won a championship in the city and just left, I'm pretty sure he's gonna want to stay there, even though like they probably didn't win a championship.
Mm-hmm.
Also, yeah, I was gonna say this one. I was gonna say this one thing. So, the what was it? Why did I forget? But DeMar DeRozan has been balling out for the Spurs. Do you think that's just good for him, considering that like he hasn't really gotten the respect he has until he got away from the Raptors trade?
Yeah, I mean, ever since DeMar DeRozan has been on the Raptors, nobody's really talked about him recently. I feel like that's just tough because DeMar DeRozan should be like, is good enough to lead a team like through something. But the thing is, it's just we'll see though. I feel like DeMar DeRozan deserves like a trade or something because San Antonio is a rebuilding team and they can't rebuild around DeMar DeRozan because he's getting old, right? So I feel like
Well,
in the future,
he's a free agent this year, so we'll see.
he may leave. Who knows? We
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
know
yeah.
what
He's
San
definitely
Antonio's
gonna
gonna
leave.
do.
Yeah, he's definitely gonna leave. He wants to
Where do you think he's
contend.
gonna go?
Whatever team has money, honestly, because he probably wants to get paid as well. I don't think the Lakers will have enough money, of course.
It'd
And
be
he
insane
might,
to see.
maybe the Knicks, just because the Knicks really are obsessed with like big name free agents, so they'll just go after him. And oh yeah, I was also gonna touch on this. A lot of Knicks fans think Kawhi is gonna go to them, but then I say like, yo, every single year you always say you get the big name free agent, and then you just never get him.
I mean,
He
but
just slips through your hands.
if the New York Knicks pull out something during this year's playoffs, it's going to be a big name free agent destination because obviously New York, who doesn't want to play in New York, right? Good city. Um, so we'll see. New York, I mean, with Julius Randle and the upcoming of just entire team in general, Mitchell Robinson, even Kevin Knox, it's been disappointing, but New York, the Knicks have a bright future. That's all I'm saying. If their front
Oh wait,
office obviously doesn't
okay, yeah.
really do
So now
something.
we've talked so much about teams. Like, what players do we think have like taken a big step this year?
Like you're saying, the most improved player.
A bit, but then you can also talk about how like many other players that were just not mediocre last year. They just made they just made a name for themselves this year.
Mm-hmm.
Apart from like Julius Randle, because like that's pretty obvious. But like,
Yep.
what other players do you think just made that big step?
Mm. A lot of there are obviously a lot of players here, but I actually can't think of any from off the top of my head. I mean, LaMelo Ball, obviously, being drafted as a rookie and playing like this, it's reminds me of the Luka Doncic, draft for Dallas. Uh, I actually am not sure. What do you think?
Well, Zach Levine has taken a big jump this year.
Mm-hmm.
I think now he's a top 25 player in the league. Exactly, that's taking a big. De'Aaron Fox has taken a big step. I really love De'Aaron Fox. Like back in like the 2017 draft, I said this guy was better than Lonzo. A lot of people didn't believe me, but then like now you can understand why said that, right? Uh, Like you can see that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, yeah. So since also like Jokic as a star also took a big step. Like before, Jokic was just known as a passing big man. Now he's like a walking triple double that can do it all. Hey,
Yeah, literal MVP candidate. Honestly, it's
I,
kind
I,
of
I
obvious
think he is gonna win the MVP.
he's
Yeah,
gonna
he
win
was
MVP.
really.
It's not
It
even
was it
close.
was really it was just mainly because he was the only one that can stay healthy the entire year, and that's why I have Jokic over Embiid as the best center in the NBA because he's way more durable than Embiid is. Not that Embiid's bad, like Embiid, it when healthy is probably the best player in the NBA, like one of them, of course, right? But he doesn't really play a full season, or even then, like he plays. I think the most games he's played in the season was like what 60.
Yeah. So
Like, do you
you
also
know
think the
another
same?
yeah, you know another player. Sorry if I'm changing the topic, but if do you know what another player who deserves more respect is? I feel like they're just very underrated in
There's
this league.
very yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
Devin
Well,
Booker.
like I said, De'Aaron Fox is also one of those
Yeah.
players too. But
Mhm.
just you think Devin Booker is the most underappreciated guy?
Yeah, he's
And
just
how
super
come?
slept on. I mean, on the Phoenix Suns, obviously, everybody's just the entire team in general. Nobody likes Phoenix. That's kind of sad because the team is getting really slept on. It's, an amazing team with Chris Paul. Now with Chris Paul on the team, now if you look at like DeAndre Ayton, Chris Paul, Devin Booker, it's a solid three, right? For on a solid playoff team. So I feel like they're gonna definitely be good in the playoffs this year, for sure.
Hmm. Also, the yeah. So you said Devin Booker's kind of underappreciated. I kind of think Jalen Brown from the Celtics is really great. Like, cause he really this year he's really been showing that he can be a star. And when Jason Tatum was out, he was good. And then and now he's actually one of the most consistent Celtics players because Jason Tatum sometimes like you can see how well like sometimes he's off in his shooting, but Jalen Brown is really consistent with his efficiency and his scoring. And the problem is this year he hasn't really been great defensively because Celtics offense isn't really that great and they're asking him to do so. So they're asking him and Jason Tatum to lead the offense yet, and so they can't really focus on the defensive side of the ball too much. And that's kind of the problem. And then but I still think like this guy's underappreciated because not a lot
He
of
is, yeah.
people not understand his ability to play the game of basketball as well as the All Star game. Yeah, I remember people saying, "Oh, Jalen Brown should not made the All Star. Trey Young should have." But at the same time, yeah, Trey Young should have been an All Star. But All Star is just a popularity contest, so no, it doesn't really matter at the same time.
Obviously, everything comes back to the playoffs, right? All-star appearances doesn't really. It matters, of course, like to be on your resume, but Jalen Brown should be, yeah, should be more loved. It's just unfortunate. He's injured right now, right? He's not coming back.
I believe so. I believe so. Yeah, that's why Tatum is like dropping 60 a night.
hmm That's unfortunate, though. The Celtics would have been an amazing team to watch in the playoffs, especially against Brooklyn. I want to see how Boston does against Brooklyn because Boston, Brad Stevens' defenses, obviously
Brad
Brad Stevens
Stevens,
top three.
I honestly think Brad Stevens should get fired.
Fired? Why?
The problem, okay, yeah, I get that. Yeah, what Brad Stevens has done for the franchise is really great, right? He kind of turned it around because in the 2016 playoffs, he was the reason why the team was there. But when we're talking about coaches, right? There's two types
Mhm.
of coaches. There's coaches that can just coach and have the team be not be terrible. They can raise the floor, like if you know what I mean. If
Yeah.
so, raising the floor means that they can make the highest potential out of the team, right? And there's also coaches that can be mentally tough and lead a team to a championship, coach a team to a championship. I don't think Brad Stevens is the guy to coach a team to a championship. I think he's more of a floor raiser coach because like I said, yeah, in the 2016 playoffs, was not he was not there. Yeah, he was the reason why Celtics were in the playoffs was because of him. That's what I meant.
Mhm.
But that's the thing. Now Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown are developed. They want to compete. They're competing right now as we're speaking. And Brad Stevens, the Celtics actually really need to think of this. Can Brad Stevens coach their team to a championship?
Mhm.
Remember like a years and years ago when the Golden State Warriors had Mark Jackson as their head coach.
Yeah.
They had Mark Jackson as their head coach. And Mark Jackson was mainly just there to develop Steph, to develop Clay, to develop Draymond, to develop just every guy on that team. But then they thought of that question: can Mark Jackson lead us to a championship? And they decided that wasn't true. They got Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr made an adjustment. The
And,
Warriors became the next dynasty.
yeah, exactly. 2 years later, the Warriors just yeah, that was
And that's that. That I'm saying. I'm not saying he should automatically get fired because he's a terrible coach. I'm just saying. I'm just thinking the Celtics really need to think. Like the Celtics front office need to think about this. Can he lead them to a championship? And if he doesn't, then fire him because you already have a team that's settled to win a championship right now.
Do you really though? That's what I was gonna argue. Does Boston really have a championship caliber team though?
Maybe like they could use a few pieces. The problem is like the pieces they have right now, they really kind of overpaid for because Kemba Walker,
Mhm.
they really should have not done that signing. Like you can understand why.
Mhm.
Like, they really should have not done that signing. And then that maybe and Danny Ainge is really like self-centered. He doesn't really like to give his guys away. He doesn't really like to give picks. Like he's not really a huge getter in the trade market.
That's true.
So maybe yeah, so maybe they're like so I think they are like a few pieces away. They just need but that's the also they also do have like young talent. Like Payne Pritchard's okay, but
Mhm.
he was good in the beginning of the season. But
Peyton
yeah, but
Pritchard
I'm
is
saying,
so
but still, like Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, I think are good, great play because they're also young too. They're very young. They're like 23, 24. So you have a 23, 24-year old. They're ready to win now, and you can contend for like the potential future, if so. But yeah, they are. If we're talking about if they're really a championship team, I'm just gonna say they're a few pieces away. I'll just say that.
yep. Mhm. Not really. That they really just need like another big name on the team, and they're automatically top three in the East for sure. They're like arguably they're probably already a top half team in the league right now, obviously. But like you were talking about, Payne Pritchard, he's really slept on. Obviously, if you've seen his college days at Oregon, I mean, absolutely insane, and his transition into the NBA is just incredible. I would like to say Payton Pritchard. Like, sorry, I wouldn't like to say. I would like to see Payton Pritchard get better throughout time.
That's the problem. When you're on a contending team, you don't really want to have a young guy to develop because you're not really going to use him as much.
Well, that's the Celtics are just in a really weird situation. They're mediocre. They're kind of remind me of the Magic from Orlando Magic from the past like few years. They're mediocre, but they're not good enough to win the championship. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But we saw last year they made the Eastern Conference Finals, but like that they've been on that stage for like years and years.
Yeah. Hmm.
Also yeah, I was just gonna say like they just really need a guy like they just really need more scores because so that Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown can focus more on being two-way guys. Because I don't really think they can be number one options on championship team yet. But I do think if they just get another possibly scorer, like no, I don't even know who because they do have Evan Fournier who's pretty good in an 18 point per game scorer like on great efficiency. Then that's the thing like that Kemba Walker signing just kind of ruined them because they didn't because with that money they spent with Kemba they could have just retooled their team rather than just to spend it all on him. But that was at the same time that was just more of a panic attack because at that time when they signed him, right? Kawhi went to LA, LeBron went to LA, Katie and Kyrie joined New York. I mean, no, yeah, New York, but it was Brooklyn. And yeah, so they just went a panic attack and said, "Yeah, let's just get a big name free agent," and they got it. They got a guy.
Oh.
They gave him a max, and then now they're probably regretting it.
Mhm. But I mean, without that max, where do you think Kemba Walker would have went? Because I feel like he wouldn't have
I
went to
don't
the
know.
Celtics.
And he would have not stayed in Charlotte because they didn't offer him the super
Yeah,
max.
exactly. The 2019 like free agent signing season was just crazy. Too many stuff going on. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm. So I'm gonna say, okay, so who are your who's coming out the West and who's coming out the East for you? Because you already know my answer. I already said the Nets and Clippers.
Yeah. That's a clip. I feel like Brooklyn's definitely going to come out of the East. The West is going to be interesting, like I've been saying all the time, because you just don't know about the West. Like there are so many wild card teams like Dallas. You know, Dallas with Luka Doncic. Who knows? You know what Dallas can do, right? Obviously, the Los Angeles Clippers, the Lakers, like we were talking about, the Phoenix Suns, Portland Trailblazers. You know, I feel like all 8 teams currently in the playoffs, like in the Western Conference playoffs, are going to be good to watch. So I actually have no clue who to expect out of the West, but it's going to be to be real with you. I feel like it's going to be one of the LA teams.
Yeah, yeah, I can understand. My problem with the Lakers is just their health. Not because of how great of it, how bad. I'm not saying they're a bad team. My problem with them is just are they healthy? And right now they're not. So I'm just gonna say yeah.
Yeah,
And but them without LeBron and AD is just it's a G League team itself because they're not
yeah.
really they don't really have the depth like as we thought when they made all these big free agents, right, like Montrezl Harrell, Dennis Schroeder and stuff, they traded for him, and then we realized that like they actually had bigger needs now. Like they lost Dwight Howard. That was a big loss. And JaVale McGee, that was also a big loss for them too. That's what it's showing so far.
Mm. I mean, now that Dwight Howard's on the Sixers,
Yeah, he's on the Sixers.
I feel like the Sixers obviously they're the number one seed, but I feel like they shouldn't be. It's going to be. Who do you think is going to play in the Eastern Finals this year?
Well, it really can't be. Oh wait, no, yeah, it could. It could be.
Mm-hmm.
It can't be. Yeah, it can't be the Nets or Bucks because that's 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
That they're the 2 and 3 seeds, so they're gonna have to. So they're gonna have to play in the second round if needed. But if Philly, okay, so Philly would probably have to play whoever wins from the Wizards and Pacers, right?
Yeah.
So I think whoever it is, Philly will win that, and then they're probably gonna have to face a team like Miami. And then
Mm-hmm.
yeah, after the first round, that's when the East really gets fun to watch because there's not really a much good great teams for like the first round because like there's teams like the Hawks, like Pacers, Pacers, Wizards, and then or like if they make the first round, but then yeah, what if the semifinals, if the second round becomes like Nets, Sixers, Heat, and Bucks, then it'll be fun to watch. Then it'll be fun. It's like oh, this is like the top 4 teams we all expected to come.
Mm-hmm. I feel like it's gonna be Brooklyn. It's gonna be definitely Brooklyn coming out of the East for sure.
Yeah,
But I
for
feel like
sure.
it's gonna be either Brooklyn Philly or Brooklyn Miami. To be honest, I feel like
Yeah,
Miami does if Miami is healthy. Like with obviously it's or I can't really say that anymore honestly because Victor Oladipo's injury. But it's probably gonna be Brooklyn Philly, the top 2 seeds. But no, Miami. If Miami is fully healthy, I genuinely think they have a chance of beating like a prime Philly.
yeah, maybe.
Hmm.
Also, yeah, there's also some. I talked about surprises, right? And I said the Raptors are not a playoff team. What, as a Raptors fan yourself, I'm not a Raptors fan, but like you're a Raptors fan, so I'm just gonna say, like, what do you think went wrong this year?
Obviously the lack of a proper big man for majority of the season. Obviously, I mean Aaron, like before the season started, when Aaron Baines was a free agent, everybody was being hyped like, yo, this is Toronto's next big thing, right? But it's just very disappointing. And plus, Toronto just the team in general without Serge Ibaka just felt different. You know what I'm saying? Like it felt like Toronto was just really missing something the entire season.
I'm gonna say, remember, I'm gonna give you a flashback. Remember when it was Game 7, Celtics versus Raps, right?
Hmm.
And that's when I had biology. So I was like, yo, man, this. So my mind was like in many different places right now. I think you were there too, but well, that's a different topic. So Yeah, so what people I remember people saying, "Oh, we should have not played Siakam and played Ibaka." What are your thoughts on that?
Played Siakam. Yeah, Siakam was throughout the bubble playoffs. He just wasn't him. He just wasn't different. I mean, he just looked different. You just cannot lie with that. Just Pascal Siakam, like you see all the Instagram, just social media in general, just hate about this guy. And I feel like that's unfortunate because without Siakam, we definitely wouldn't have won a chip in 2019. So Siakam, I feel like he's a second option guy. If Toronto gets like a big name free agent, which is obviously difficult as is in Toronto, right? But if Toronto gets like a big name player like Kawhi Leonard or anybody really that Siakam can play behind, I feel like Toronto is still good enough to be a championship team. And even with
Oh,
this year's NBA draft, we can get. I feel like Toronto's just in full rebuild mode right now because Toronto definitely will have a top 10 draft. I feel like this year, and yeah, with that, get a young player to develop. Maybe in the future, 2 3 years down the road, we could be a championship team.
yeah, but it's very difficult to start from the draft and be a contender like right away.
Well, it's been
Like
done before.
I know, yeah, I'm not saying but I'm saying it's difficult because a lot of teams have been doing that for years and they didn't really have shine. That's why like as a Rockets fan, right? Like I really hope Cade Cunningham goes there. If they get the number one pick, but then I'm saying, but then I'm saying like, okay, how good will Cade Cunningham be that like the Rockets can be a playoff team in a few years? That's what my question about it is.
Kate Cunningham and Christian Wood play really well. To
Well,
be
but
completely honest,
that would end up great, yeah.
yeah.
But then at the same time, yeah, they need better D. But I'll talk about that in a different video actually. But yeah, so when we were talking about like disrespected players, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think like I've seen a lot of Raptors fans saying like, "Oh, Siakam doesn't get the respect he deserves," which at the same time, like I can understand why, but at the same time, I can understand why he does get that hate. And I don't really like Siakam personally because when you watch him play, he seems that he's so inconsistent, and he really does the same thing over and over again. Like he always spins. Like you can agree with me on that, right?
Yeah, it is. He's like really. He's predictable. To
Yeah,
be
exactly. He's very predictable, and like yeah, he always tries to play like hero ball, and it doesn't even end up working half the time.
Mm-hmm. We'll
But
see
like,
though.
what
That's
are your
because
thoughts? But yeah, what are your thoughts on that though? Like, do you think he should get more respect?
uh, I feel like Siakam is just in a really bad situation right now. Obviously, on a mediocre, like just bad Toronto team this year. I feel like being the number one option just isn't the life for Siakam because we saw
Yeah,
how that
that's
worked out
fair.
right throughout the entire
That's
thing.
fair. Yeah.
So I feel like he's been put on the spotlight that he's not ready to like be on yet. So
Or
that's why
or
he's
that he's just not capable of two either. Because
he
when
might not be
he
capable. He might be
yeah,
just developing. He might be getting used to that number one option on the team thing. But
because
I
like
feel
when Kawhi was there, right? Kawhi was that number one. Then Siakam flourished as the second option.
yeah,
That's
exactly
what happened. But
because
that's what people hate on him for because they don't see him as a first option, which I don't see him as a first option either because like because of all the reasons because of the reasoning I had before. I don't really see him as a first option on a championship team, of course. But that's the reason how he gets hate because of his inability to do that. But then I can say that for a lot of players.
hmm well for Siakam, I feel like he's like obviously like a big reason for Toronto winning the championship. It was Pascal Siakam, right? And the reason why was because like especially Kawhi looking at him as like a massive just two-way player, insane player on defense and on offense. I feel like a lot of teams just shifted their defense way too hard on Kawhi, and then that left players wide open like Siakam just hop in and just contribute like crazy. You know what I'm saying?
And then Fred VanVleet was pretty good. Kyle
Yeah,
Lowry's pretty good.
exactly.
Like yeah, those
Fred
It was
VanVleet.
also
I mean,
it was also fun to watch that Toronto team actually because they actually played a basketball in a way that I've really never seen before. Like they actually shot mid ranges.
mhm.
Remember? They actually shot mid ranges.
Toronto has been shooting mid ranges for forever, ever since the DeMar DeRozan days, man.
Yeah. Yeah, but then when you won a championship with Kawhi proved that the mid range is not dead in the
Yeah,
NBA.
exactly.
But then at the same time, like yeah, not a lot of teams still do that.
It's a good shot though. It's a good shot to take.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's terrible to shoot mid ranges. Well, since I'm a Rockets fan, right? And the time when I was the time that I'm a Rockets fan, James Harden's been like for as long as I was a Rockets fan, and yeah, so like it wasn't like at times where I would watch the Rockets, I would just say like, come on, just shoot the goddamn mid range, just shoot the man, because I would remember just looking at the TV, just seeing these five out, maybe like Clint Capella in the paint, setting a screen, and then James Harden would have a perfect opportunity to just go mid range, but then he would just pass the ball out.
Yeah, no, that would be James
But
Harden. I feel like is
and
James
now he
Harden.
does that, and he doesn't even do that in Brooklyn. In Brooklyn, he like completely turned the way he plays his game.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's just what being on a different team does to you. I mean,
Yeah.
James, like at the beginning when Brooklyn acquired, James Harden and Kevin Durant, we were having issues on, there's only one basketball, like we said. Like, are they going to share the
Mm-hmm.
basketball? But James Harden now with he looks like a different player. Obviously, still
Completely
is good.
revitalized his game. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like that's a good step for James Harden because I feel like that
That
change for
just
James
though
Harden.
that just really proves that James Harden just didn't want to play in Houston, and the
Yeah,
Houston style of basketball he just didn't really like. That's why he wanted to leave. Because when people remember when he wanted to leave and then he did all that, he went to strip clubs and all that stuff, and
yeah.
everyone was clowning him for that. But now they can understand why
Mm.
he would do that.
He just didn't like Houston. It's just how it is.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
I'm really hoping James Harden wins this year. And
yeah.
even if he doesn't, well, I can understand why because they haven't really played together as much. But yeah, so we all have the Nets coming out of the East, right? That
Yeah.
coming out of the East. So I really hope he wins this year.
Yeah. James Harden, obviously, if you're a Rockets fan, you've watched James Harden's play for so long, like for just the longest time possible. So obviously, it would be cool to see James Harden win the ring, finally,
Hmm.
after all this time that he spent in Houston.
Yeah, a lot of people were saying that. I remember a lot of people were saying, "Oh, like now that he's balling out in Brooklyn, people were saying like, oh, Houston didn't really do anything to keep him in contention." I felt like as a Rockets fan myself, I think that's somewhat true, but at the same time, like they really did everything they could have done because the way they treated him, right, was that like he was the alpha. They treated James Harden as basically how the people in the 1600s would treat a king. Whatever the king would ask for, they would do it.
Yeah.
So they basically treated James Harden that, and then but if James Harden wanted someone, they would get him. But that's how they got like Chris Paul, Russell Westbrook, even like that's how they got players like that. And how it really
Yep.
sucks, man. Like I remember that 2018 season when they won 65 games and then they were one game away from the Warriors and the hamstring injury from Chris Paul.
That was pretty.
Man,
That sucked. That must have been
yeah,
pretty bad to watch.
that made the Warriors win. That made the Warriors win. Everyone agrees with that, but whatever. The time flies. That's what basketball is. At the end of the day, it's just sports.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough to look back on these tough times, but it is. Houston's got a bright future though with the number one pick. I mean, you guys could be getting Kate Cunningham, and then
I hope it's a top four pick. Because
yeah,
if it's not a top four pick, then OKC gets it. But at the same
it's
time,
gonna
like,
be
do you think if Kate Cunningham goes to the Rockets, right? Do you think it would be the best case scenario for him?
yes. I mean, I don't know I don't really follow Kate Cunningham and his decisions, like what team he wants to go, but Kate Cunningham playing alongside Christian Wood would be incredible. They would be an
KPJ
amazing duel. Yeah,
and KPJ, that would be
Kevin Porter Jr. Yeah,
also I'm a Rockets fan myself, so like I'm not saying he's a rookie of the year, but this guy doesn't really get talked about. Deshaun Tate, do you know Deshaun Tate?
oh, Jashawn Tate, yeah, Tate. I don't know.
Tate, yeah,
Yeah, I don't know about
Tate.
that guy yet.
Oh, you don't know about him?
I do know about I've heard of his name, but obviously he doesn't get talked about that much. Like you said, he doesn't get talked about. So I haven't really heard too much headline stories, but
The reason why, yeah, because he's not really the most flashiest player. He's more of an impactful player than an actual. He's a really great hustler. Like if you watch Rockets games like me for like the past, I haven't really seen a lot of recently because I didn't see yesterday's game. But when you watch Rockets games, you can see the impact he has on the court.
mhm.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's why he
yo,
doesn't really have the, huh?
I'm going to believe you on that one because fundamental players are rare nowadays. Everybody's trying to
Hmm.
be flashy and all that. It's just flashy passes, throwing like 20, 30 point games. It's the fundamentals. Like obviously Tim Duncan, one of the biggest names to come to
Yeah.
my head.
Oh, yeah, he's in
Fundamental
the Hall of
player.
Fame, yo. Congrats to him, man.
Oh yeah, he's entering the Hall of Fame
Yeah, him and
soon,
Kevin
right?
Garnett.
KG, yeah. I mean,
Man,
when is that?
I
Is
really
that
love Tim
sooner?
Duncan. Yeah, I think they already. Or no, never mind. I think it's soon. I'll check again, but I really love Tim Duncan, man. Like he's my guy. Like I remember when I first started watching basketball, he was like old, but at the same time, like I remember the 2014 season, 2013 season where
Yeah.
the Spurs won a championship. I remember that. I didn't really think
Big-
he was that good, but then when I like saw his old highlights and like all these
mhm.
videos, all these videos, I was like, yo, Tim Duncan to me is a top 5 player of all time. But
Yeah.
well, that's a different argument. But
Insane player. I mean, obviously, do you think? Oh yeah, actually, as we were talking about Tim Duncan a little bit, this is a question that I like really want to ask you. Do you think Tim Duncan will become the head coach of the Spurs after Greg Popovich retires?
honestly, I don't think Greg Popovich will retire as a head coach. I think he'll be a head coach till he dies.
Really?
I don't even know. Like with this, like I don't know. Like he would. There's so many times where he could just easily just retire now because like the Spurs dynasty is like done. It's basically
he
done.
he's written his legacy perfectly
Yeah,
well into NBA
exactly.
history. So
Exactly. So like I think like if he really wants to retire, I think now is the perfect opportunity. Unless he wants to contend again, and then they can make big moves. But still, will Tim Duncan be the assistant coach? And that just really depends on the future of the Spurs. Like, do they want to contend and then keep Popovich as their head coach, or like just not even contend?
mm,
Do they just want to keep Popovich as their head coach, or do they just want to move on and say, "All right, Tim Duncan, you're the franchise guy. You become the coach of the Spurs." And then it'll come down to, is Tim Duncan a great coach as he was a player?
hmm like we're kind of seeing the same thing with Steve
With
Nash right
Steve
now.
Nash, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the problem with Steve Nash and Tim Duncan, if Tim Duncan just went to the Spurs right now, it would be completely different because when Steve Nash entered Brooklyn, he has Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and now he has James Harden also on his team. He has three of like the most talented players in NBA, like one of the most talented players in the NBA history. He has three guys that are really super talented, and then he also has Mike D'Antoni, his own coach, on as his assistant.
hmm
And yeah, Tim Duncan won't have that. Won't have that if he just goes to the Spurs right now.
That's true. We'll see though. We'll see how it plays out this for the rest of the year and the next
Oh,
season.
and yeah, I really do believe that until Greg Popovich dies, that's when the Spurs will move on. But yeah,
How old is Greg Popovich? He's like 78, almost 80 years old.
if he is, yo, like congrats to him, man. Like, he's been
Yeah.
coaching for so long, and he's like, yeah, of course, like the greatest coach in NBA history, right?
I would.
Or like
Yeah, probably like
he's yeah top two. Like
top
he's
two
one of them.
definitely.
Yeah, he's one of them.
I
I'm
mean,
not
Phil,
saying
you
yeah,
just cannot disregard Phil Jackson.
yeah,
Phil Jackson is
of
just yeah.
course. I mean,
I mean,
I'm not saying yeah, but I'm just saying like yeah, whoever it is, he's one of them.
yeah, that's
Greg
true.
Popovich is great.
All right.
All right, so I think that wraps it up. So it was 103. I think yeah, we've been on this
Yeah.
for a pretty long time, yo, because they had so much to talk about.
Yeah.
And yo, man, it was great having you again, Steven. Actually, it was a fun time.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. So, anything you like to say before we leave?
No, not really. Just hopeful for the future of the NBA, and we'll be looking forward to the
The
playoffs that's
playoffs,
about
of
to start.
course.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So this I'm Horace Ricards. This is Steven. This is the All Facts No Cap podcast, and we are done.